experts here, and they all have their own point of view. But I want to start with Rico Berry. I'm sure you all know the film The Code. Won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature. And in some ways I see this film paralleling that, because, you know, a lot of people were afraid to watch The Cove too. They were afraid to watch Fallout, they were afraid of the issues. So Rick, can you talk a little bit about, you know, what we were talking about earlier, how you think issues need to stay out there to create change? As simple as it sounds, it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, well, it's very difficult to keep any issue in the news. It's very difficult to keep any issue alive. You know, you need the media. And take Haiti, for example. You know, there was a time when the media was camped out in Haiti, and the media has moved on, but there's still 400,000 people living in the mud in Haiti. And so it is true in all of these issues. And that's why I came here really to support Kat, because she supports activists and keeping these issues alive, and that's so important. That's why I'm here.
It's always a fight. And Rick, you've been to Fukushima recently, so can you talk a little bit about your experiences there?
Yeah, I still go to the Cove. I was there last month, and I'll be going there again next month. And the film makers have moved on, but we're still there at the Cove trying to stop that dolphin slaughter, which continues. And so while I'm there, you know, I was reading an article in the Japan Times about some Japanese senior citizens in Tokyo who decided to go to Fukushima, even though they're probably going to get radiated and get cancer. It's going to take them 20 years, and they're all over 65, so it didn't matter. And I read this, and I had a big moment. Well, I'm 74. I can go there too. And we loaded up the truck with $2,000 worth of bottles of water and 1 bag kilos of rice and toiletries and different things. The thing they really appreciated the most, the victims who are living in these little boxes, hundreds of people, is potato chips. Now we're getting truckloads of potato chips. But yeah, keeping so the threat of nuclear is not just a bomb we're looking at. It's really these nuclear power plants. Exactly. It's very real. Consider this: the storm that hit the Philippines last weekend. That was the largest. Storms are getting bigger and bigger, by the way. Earthquakes, all of these natural disasters. But that one hit the Philippines. It's not that far from Japan. If that thing had hit Japan, we would not be sitting here today. Reactor number 4 is very precarious, and the next month we're going to start try to remove these rods, which is extremely dangerous. Well, let's go on with it, just throwing them around like pickups there. Look, I don't know what to do about any of this. I can't fix, the Cove is about twice the size of this room. I can't even fix that problem. So, but I'm going to find out everything I can find out about this issue, and then when the time comes, I'll be able to do something. And I hope all of you will do the same. You can go online now with Google, and we can educate ourselves and be prepared to do something.
Thank you. Talk about what their reflections on the film, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. But Lou, you've been dealing a lot with this issue too, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about what you've been working on.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I think Stanley Kramer was a prophet. He dealt with some very broad the quiet ones and judgment, and they were going to be stepped on. He stepped on the corner. But I have a foundation, well, the racism foundation. It really does not have to do with man's inhumanity to man in that sense. It does have to do with my personal humble observation about what's happening on this planet. So now we have people who are fighting over oil. The headlines that people want more money, and the ones who have the most military might. Who has the biggest bomb? We're fighting over oil. When I think if you all believe in God, most of you do, I believe He's patting us on the shoulder saying, pay attention to this planet. So now, try to pay attention to this planet. So I know that there's a danger with nuclear falling off the nuclear plants. But I think maybe the problem lies in the consciousness of the men who are running these things. So now I think it's like an alcoholic, and you keep doing the same thing expecting different results. And it doesn't happen until you get a wake-up call. So now we have a window. Even if you're rich. That's the man doing it now. But we have a window. And the window that's closing is the most important problem is the changing of the planets. It's about to get rid of us as a people, and the most important commodity on the planet are our children. So if we're dealing with anything else, we all may as well be in a 747 airplane at 30,000 feet, and everybody inside the plane is fighting over who's going to be in first class. And that's what we're doing. The window is closing. We need to cooperate with one another to save the planet. And one of the things to save the planet is to close these nuclear plants.
I'm going to open it up to the rest of the panel, but Rick Overton has something I think he wants to say, and he's joined the panel. So I'd like to get Rick's thoughts about the film and what's currently happening, because I know you have a lot of...
Thank you. I remember being under a school desk, and after having seen the footage of the trees going like this and like that, and desk isn't going to stop anything. Authorities lied to me routinely, and it has informed my comedy ever since. That's why you've never heard of me, but I marvel at how we're pushing ourselves to extinction, fighting over a liquid made of the last big stupid animal that stomped all over the face of the earth. And we put a nuclear power plant on the fault line of San Onofre. And the more you keep pulling oil and other things out of the ground, you start creating giant pockets where the land wants to fall, because it used to be held up by the oil. And now there's just like empty caves that are going to drop in on their own weight, and that's going to cause massive earthquakes. There's 1,000 practical reasons why one power source connects inextricably to the other power source. And we're using the chain of every bad, deadly thing in a row. And we're ignoring the other things, and we're phasing out the last of a greedy, stupid, simpler version of our species that took power because it knows it doesn't exist anywhere else except on top. And we're watching that one fold away. Evil isn't working correctly anymore. This is optimistic. You're watching when the right wing throws stuff in now, everything's falling apart. Evil isn't going correctly because we woke up. The internet woke people up. People speaking out woke people up. Movies, Stanley Kramer woke up a generation. And though we went back partially to sleep, the replay and the echo of this will play for the rest of our lives. And those are heroes. There should be medals for people that did the kind of stuff that you're doing, statues. To tell the species, this is a good thing you're doing, be honored for it. So in your own personal way, honor the people like that are doing this thing. Like they're heroes, because this is a war. She's a war hero. You're war heroes.
Thank you. Lily, you were asking earlier, you did receive, along with Sally Field, I think in 1985, the annual Helen Caldicott Leadership Award Medal. And it was for your fight to halt the arms race and pledge to use your celebrity status to promote disarmament. So can we talk a little bit about that? What happened to that award, Helen? Is it still happening? We should reactivate that.
Did you release it? Did I take it home?
I don't know. Where did you put it?
Well, where is that?
It's our bookshelf.
Put it on your neck?
I don't know what it
Or was it more like a big statue?
was. You guys wanted Jane Alexander and Phil.
Oh, God, I'm sure I deserve it. But it just, the gentleman over here, Rick and Rick.
Embarrassment of riches.
We have people in the government that I would hope some people in this audience did not vote for, but they won't even give food stamps to children who are starving. So we have a very hard battle to make people want to do the right thing, or think about their fellow man or their a generation of children.
Thank you. Helen. Thank you, everybody.
After really said that, America clearly needs a revolution. I don't mean blood and guts, but we had the second American Revolution in the 80s. Because I said, when I first came, everyone said better to be dead than red. After educating people over 5 years with the help of Lily and Sally, no one wanted me on, where did we go, Phil Donahue, talking about boring old doctor talking about nuclear war, but they did want Lily and Sally. Actually, by the time I got on, Lily had covered the whole waterfront in half an hour. She studied all the numbers, and there was nothing for me to say really afterwards.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I have to add that Lily is a heroine because I think in some ways I see a synergy here with Dr. Caldicott. When Lily made those appearances with me to promote the elephants and bullying, they wouldn't put me on the show unless Lily went on with me. So, Lily is such a champion. Now I'm going to open this up now to Donna Anderson, who made your debut in My Father's on the Beach. And I just wanted to know, I think, it was touched upon in the film, but what was it like when you first got cast, knowing that you were going to be playing that role in this already famous novel, and with Gregory Peck, Ava Gardner, Fred Astaire, Tony Perkins?
I was totally overwhelmed. And by everything, by what it was about, by who I was doing it with, by even leaving America. I had never left home, and that was a long, 30 hours or something. Really, it was before jazz. And we had to stop in Hawaii and in Fiji before we got there. And I had no voice. So Fred Astaire, being the gentleman he was, did all the talking, which he would have done anyway, I'm sure. But I didn't feel guilty because I didn't have a voice. So it was overwhelming. But like they said, there weren't that many people. It was not that crowded. You said that.
Well, that's where I lived.
I know.
I thought there were a lot of people.
But for me, there wasn't. Yeah.
Well, this question would be good for Heather, Donna, and my mom, but I wanted to know, due to time of On the Beach and now with Fallout, and can you all elaborate on the relevance and importance of both films' messages today? So both films, if they were shown back to back.
I think it's been mentioned that everybody was frightened to death then, to the point of building shelters. Today, there is such a cavalier attitude, it seems to me, like you can't keep anything in the news, so you hear about the worst possible thing happening, and then you're on to something else. It's just, there's another bad thing happening over here, so you forget about this bad thing. But if we don't have this earth, and if we don't change our way of living on this earth, I mean, you can't go back to the guy that said, Americans don't have to give up SUVs. No, we don't have to do something like that. We do. I think we really do have to start changing our attitude about life and about what we use of the earth around us, or we're lost. And I'm not, because I'm as old as some of these people up here. I looked around. Some of these people are really old. And I said, my God, I'm 74.
74 is still young. I would be 74 when I'm on this panel. So, this must have been such an amazing not going to be about Heather and my mom. This must have been an amazing documentary to be part of, and first of all, what was it like for all of you to work with Lawrence Johnston and Peter Kaufman? When you look at that footage and the photographs and how they were able to find all that, did you contribute a lot to the photographs of your father, or how did? This is.
Hold it right up next to your mouth.
Yes, I did have to go through the family archives to find photos of my family. There were not too many of them because my dad was a bit camera shy, and my mother was a photographer herself, but she did not like to be in photographs, and so basically there were not that many photos of us as a family. There was a couple of my mother in the documentary there, and there was one of my sister, which you would not have recognized her, of course. She was the one sailing with my dad in the little dinghy. But I had to dig through memories and photographs and everything. But I tell you, it was so rewarding when you see this movie here. What Lawrence Johnston did was absolutely amazing.
It's always a time to watch this movie and the subject, but it just seems in the last week or 2 weeks we've been dealing with Fukushima and what's happening in Iran. Can you elaborate a bit on that? Because you mentioned to me that about the Middle East and that being a problem that we really need to focus on, I think, a lot right now. And I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Well, it seems to me that the world is in just exactly the same place that it was 50 years ago. You've got the unrest in the Middle East, which you had then, but of course it is worse now because these nations all have or are close to having the atomic bomb, or the cobalt bomb, or whatever has succeeded the atom bomb. And I think that the threat is very severe.
Can I add to that? Yeah.
I think it's very easy to see not the mote in the other person's eye, to see the mote in the other person's eye. But what you've got to understand is of the 20,000 hydrogen bombs in the world, America and Russia own 94%. You've got about 10,000 hydrogen bombs, and 1,000 bombs will cause nuclear winter and the end of life on Earth. So if Iran gets a bomb, well, they might blow up a city, or North Korea might blow up New York. But we're talking about the end of evolution, the end of life on the planet. Only Russia and America can do that, but a small country can trigger an fulfillment. I don't know who said, the spark that could set up, well, I call it the global gas oven. That's what it would be. And so you've got to take responsibility. You're spending over $1 trillion a year on murder, which is the Pentagon. They call it national security. National security is free health care for all of you. Like we've got to expand it. Education for our children. Many of the men running this country are sociopaths. 1 in 25 people are sociopaths. Charming, erudite, brilliant, intellectual, but no moral conscience, and you can name them. And so it's time we made the clinical diagnosis, the psychiatric diagnosis, got rid of them. It's time the women took over. The guys have stuffed it up. And the next book I'm going to write is Why Men Kill and Why Women Let Them.
Now I want to bring Mom into the panel, and the film focuses a lot on the fallout, obviously, of radiation, but also the fallout between your father and my dad, and I'm hoping that you can enlighten all of us on, how we can come to terms with the fact that, even though they have their differences, that Neville Shute's book On the Beach and Stanley Kramer's film On the Beach, both are still with us today, and obviously Dr. Caldicott is an example of that. Can you elaborate a little bit on why you think there was such, conflict over even, do you think that would happen today if this film was made?
But there's always conflict. I mean, I've never been on a set in my life where there wasn't conflict over how they were gonna say a line, or if they were gonna say that line. And particularly when you have something as serious as this film, and this wonderful novel that was so magnificently written in the first place, but it wouldn't have been a film. A filmmaker has a different responsibility to entertain an audience, and particularly if it's the end of the world, and I think I said it on the screen. No one's ever happy completely with the result of their novel or their play. It's just the rule of thumb, it's just the way it's always been. A filmmaker has a different responsibility. If it's the end of the world, and you've got a very dire subject, you have a responsibility to have people accept it, so that you'll think about it, but it has to have some other balance to it. And as I think I said it, you have to have, I think, hope. And I think love or connecting with someone, particularly at the very end of your life, is what is a natural progression of what we grab onto. That's just my opinion of it. I may be totally wrong, but I think the book, as well as the film, made impact. And that's really all that really matters to me, and I think it should matter only to you as well. On this subject.
And the conflict is really pretty insignificant,
Yeah.
whether Gregory got together and did the nasty. That's not very important.
I just want to say that
I was speaking of our investors when I said that. But what I'm saying is, all we had two artists who were in conflict just with their own vision for something. So it's not really a horrific thing.
I agree.
Or something that can't be resolved. It was resolved.
But Lily, even though the film still lasts today, and we're going to open it up in just a second, do you think it's the time, and this would go for Mom too, and all of you, that it was 1959, and that was, I don't know if style is the right word, but it was, in those days you had to have American stars, but today they would use Australians. They did a remake of On the Beach for Showtime.
Watch it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Today they would, and do you think today would be different, that they would be able to use unknowns and keep it just like the book? What do you think about that?
Stanley never really wanted to use stars in his movies. I mean, that he used to have to fight with that. But a studio has a responsibility too. If you're going to spend this kind of money at the end of the world, you've got to have something for somebody to go and see. So you use big stars to at least get their money back. Maybe they won't like the film, but at least they'll like to look at Ava Gardner or Gregory Peck. So that was, unfortunately, the commitment that he had to make to get his films made sometimes. When they made it for Showtime, they did a remake of this film, and I thought it was very well done that they did actually show the bodies of people who had died. They got very, very graphic. It's a matter of taste. I sometimes think that your imagination is far more visual than actually showing it. I think Stanley was always right in his approach. He always had great taste, to me, and I think to many others, but he didn't go that far. But your imagination can certainly tell the story.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? I'll be, if you raise your hand, I'll call on you, just like in school. Okay.
How do we deal with ignorance? There are so many people who don't believe in global warming, for example. We have people still arguing where our president was born. We have, and you look at the percentages of the people who actually believe that he is one religion or another religion, and you're not going to be able to change these people. You bring them facts, they ignore facts. How do you deal with this?
Well, you can educate people. You can educate everyone if you approach them the right way. Because everyone underneath, I mean, and it's interesting because doctors have absolute credibility. I mean, even the skeptics on global warming or nuclear power or weapons, if they're sick, they come to us. Even the Tea Partiers. So, and the way you get to, if I have a male audience who's not attending too well, I talk about the medical effect of radiation upon their testicles. So there's always a way to get it to an audience with humour and education and lots of facts. I mean, you have to come and be an actress like Lily.
Well, Helen, I also wanted to ask about this film Pandora's False Promise. So I just wanted a little bit of enlightenment on it. I
Has anyone
haven't seen.
seen it? Robert Stone, I don't know who the hell
Donna
he
saw
is.
it, Donna saw it.
He's a
Donna
pain
saw
in the
it.
neck.
Lily, did you see it? I have not, but.
And I mean, what's so diabolical about it is that it's exploiting the fact that these kinds of corporatists and government people who have, just led us down this exploitive, terrible profiteering path for decades, so that we're not seeking alternative energy, not doing anything, not trying to develop or seek out any of them. There are many paths we have to stabilizing the planet and its climate. But we've been backed into a corner now where they're able to make the argument that nuclear power is all we have left. That it's the only clean energy. They don't mention the waste, the nuclear waste, or something like Fukushima. That doesn't even come up. So it's like very pro-nuclear.
And say what they do about me.
Oh, well, they didn't treat Helen very well. They were just mean. It was an ugly thing for them to do. But they were trying to debase anybody who had an alternate view. And you're one of the most powerful voices in that camp.
The only one that I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and okay.
But wait, I did want to, I just thought as I was sitting there, I thought if you guys are talking and trying to do, save the species. I thought of Trudy, one of Trudy's lines, where she.
Oh, wait, what's the mic?
I want to hear what the Trudy's line.
Yeah, but we're gonna
Oh, it's on. It's probably me. No,
it's not. Hold it up.
Come here, Amy.
Like
Amy, is this
Amy,
is this a Canon mic?
Looks like it.
we're gonna hear that.
Oh, it's just a simple line, but it sort of speaks to us. It would be like, oh, you got the other mic.
I didn't hear you well.
This is, I was on stage one night and I invited people in the audience to come up. A woman had written me a note saying, "You've got to let me perform tonight. I'm a rap artist and I'm a middle-aged white woman." And so I let her come up on stage and I let her have my mic like this and she was just awful. Well, probably not, but the line is just Trudy, who's kind of a street philosopher, and she says, she says, no matter, she's telling what she's learned about studying humanity, and she says, no matter how much we screw up, infinity will always be there to give us a second chance. And then she says, well, let's face it, when you're pressed for time, infinity might as well not even be there.
Okay, anybody else? That was amazing.
I just want to say, I'm a friend of Donna's, and we've known each other since high school. I know that's really my reason for being.
the old ones.
She has to drag me down. But what I want to say is, the discussion seems to be about what we can do. And I just want to point to my friend here. She is the real deal. She bought an electric car. She has done everything for this environment in her own way. Really. She's a manager of a building, and stop it, because you are. No, and I think if every person embraces using different kinds of bulbs in their kitchens and cutting this and cutting that. I mean, and it isn't like electric cars are really expensive. And I mean, I just think that every person, if we're gonna take responsibility, and I mean, I think it's wonderful to think that we can stop it all, but we can every day if you just concentrate on what, Donna does it every day. She really does.
Does anybody else on the panel want to, I know who else would be doing what Donna does? Is there anybody else that wants to talk about that?
In terms of education, do you have, like at your house, do you have that switch that turns off everything that's plugged in, except your refrigerators?
So this pollution, and gravity brings it back down, and because of that, every river, every stream, every lake in America is contaminated with mercury. That's incredible when you think about it. The Everglades where I live is contaminated with mercury. It's from coal-fired plants. We have to get rid of them. We have to get rid of nuclear power plants and replace all of that
I agree with each and every one of you about what we can do personally, about the electric cars, about planting your own vegetables, all that kind of stuff. I agree with 100%. I'm thinking about the man who's controlling the opening of the nuclear plants around this globe. I'm also talking about the attitude that we have to keep our nuclear plant, and you can't have yours.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have to relax and get in a room and agree to shut those things down without fear. So we can do a lot of stuff together. We can save the planet, all kinds of stuff, and clean up the water and stuff. But that land with that switch and that nuclear plant has to be replaced. Put out of the way so we can close those plants. That's the mentality that I think we all have to look at. The mentality that makes those nuclear plants stay strong. Where does that come from?
Rick has a comment.
If you can't get to the main person, you can get to their kids and their neighbors, and that gets to them. There's 3 other ways in, I know from hecklers.
How do you do it?
You can get his party to take him outside. They woke up to be embarrassed about him. There's 10 different ways to get to the psychology of how this works. Maybe you don't get to them. I tell you, it adds up when the family doesn't look at you right at the breakfast table.
And we only have time for a couple of more questions.
Yeah, this is for Helen. I think part of the reason why people are ignorant and naive to the reality of radiation exposure is because typically it's not a lethal dosage. You know, when we're exposed as humans, we're not dropping dead the next day, and that is a very dangerous factor. And I was wondering if you could help explain many types. You know, there's hundreds of chemicals that make up nuclear contamination, and that gets in the food, the soil, the air, the water, and how as humans, how we consume that, and the different rays, the alpha and beta rays.
That's a whole lecture.
I'm giving grand rounds tomorrow at
Okay, that's my
Saturday,
question.
pediatric. Do you want to come? Hospital. I mean, that's what I'll be talking about, alpha, beta, gamma, neutrons, internal emitters, how radiation concentrates in food, how you can't taste, smell, or see it, the latent period of carcinogenesis, how long it takes after you've been exposed to radiation to when you get your cancer, how very high dose of radiation, it's like they got in Hiroshima. It was a new disease, we'd never seen it before, kills the actively dividing cells of the body so the hair falls out. You get terrible nausea and diarrhea, which is what was going to happen in Melbourne, on the beach, which is why they killed the baby with cyanide. And the platelets die so you can't clot, so you get bleeding under the skin, so you die of massive hemorrhage and infection. That's a very high dose. But lower doses can cause cancer, congenital anomalies. Who came up to me tonight and said he knows a woman who was born near Chernobyl and she's got one arm is missing. There are hundreds of children in homes around Chernobyl who are grossly deformed because they're affected in utero in the first 3 months of life when their organs were developing. If you want to read more, read my book, Nuclear Power is Not the Answer, because it's got written in lay language so you'll understand. I can't go into the whole thing now.
I really think that we all need to read Helen's books.
Yeah, you've all got to buy them and I'll sign them.
Paul has a question, he's preserved the books, so.
We're going to lock the door to you.
Mine's not a question. I just want to be a person that's here tonight that saw such a special film as we all have seen tonight that's made impact on a lot of us here. But I want to just say that, I am a stickler about electricity, and all of us know when electricity goes out, it affects us all, and we start to put the candlelight on. Well, I'm a stickler, and I already have timers throughout our entire house and our business. So if I can just urge everybody here tonight, go out this weekend, buy timers, put them everywhere you can, because that'll conserve the electricity, and you got to start somewhere. And if it's going to start anywhere, go start with the timers, because just that alone, if everybody in this whole place here tonight just did that one little thing, that would actually save so much more energy in the
And
world.
put solar panels on your roof. But the
Yes.
whole California is bathed in sun. You all should be living on solar power.
This room will go black in 30 minutes if you want to know. It is on a timer. We will have flashlights to walk you out if you're not out in 30 minutes.
I would like to encourage everybody to take a look at Helen's books. They're on display over here in the far corner. They're just, I think you're just charging what? $20.
A lot of you have already reserved
Books.
them in
And I
advance.
just think it's important, I really do, I don't push selling the books, sales of books, but I think these books are worth it. Because it'll give you guidelines, it'll give you information to be able to learn something.
And she's gonna personally sign it.
Get involved, be active. For God's sake, don't just let this night go and say, wasn't that an interesting night, and tomorrow you're back to square one. Don't do that.
That's what I was gonna
Get
say.
involved. Our activists are a very small core, actually. And they give up their time, their money, they pay for everything themselves, they don't make anything out of it, because they're passionate about what they believe in. Please get involved. The books are right over there, I hope that you will buy some. Thank you so much.
Anyone have one last question? Okay, Christie, last question. Oh, well, three more, okay, and then we gotta get started. Oh, see, everybody has a question. I can just take two at this point.
I just wanted to say that most people are struggling just to make ends meet. So it really blows their mind, it goes over their heads. You can't get their attention. So how do you educate these people?
You get on television and you teach them about their children, and they love their children and their grandchildren. It's got to be done through love. Does your child have a future? Why make sure you clean their teeth and immunise them and give them a good education when they have no future? They have no future from global warming and from nuclear power, etc., and possibility of nuclear war. But you have to educate them, you have to emotionally involve them, and it's easy to educate anybody. I mean, you just establish a doctor-patient relationship with an audience, like I did with Reagan when I met with him for an hour and a quarter. I had to hold his hand most of the time because he got very anxious and didn't know anything. But, you know, you educate people that way. Everybody can hear. I led a move against the French test in the Pacific. I was working 80 hours a week as a pediatric intern. You can do anything you want. If you love your children enough, or if you love the roses and the wisteria. Every morning get up and look in the mirror and say to yourself, what am I doing today to save the planet? And then you can look in your children's eyes and your grandchildren and know you're doing the right thing for them.
Anybody who has any questions for Helen can do that when they're buying the books. Thank you so much.